Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. I am your host, Captain B-Nard, flying solo today to give you guys a review and reflection of my Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Wi-Fi battle series that has just recently ended. Now, we are kind of at the end of an era here as well, with the 3DS basically being phased out and replaced with the Switch, as no future Pokemon games will be coming out for the 3DS, obviously. So I am going to be hanging up my 3DS on the wall there next to my NGDL4 Championship trophy, and I won't be posting any more content from the 3DS. But I thought it would be cool to kind of take a look back at some facts and figures about all the battles I had here on Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, as I have done in the past with both ORAS and Sun and Moon when those came to a close, and it was time for a changing of the guard. So I have prepared, as usual, some very low quality graphics for you guys to hopefully enjoy, with a bunch of numbers on here that we are going to go through. So we are just going to go ahead and start taking a look at those. Okay, so the first one I have for you guys is just some general stats about all the battles I've had here on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I've had a total of 150 battles, as you probably already know if you're following the channel, since I do number my battles for convenience, of course. So of those 150 battles, 138 of them were singles battles, and 12 of them were multi battles. Of course, the single battle is the standard battle format, although I do enjoy getting a couple of multi battles in here and there because those are kind of fun and different, and you can evolve more people than just two. So it is kind of nice to mix things up a little bit with those. So of those 150 battles I had, I actually won 110 of them, while I lost 40 of them, which of course gives me a win to loss ratio of about 73%. So, as I mentioned before, when I've done this in the past, I do try to give you guys an accurate representation of how well the teams that I build do. So I try to post an accurate proportion of wins and losses to each team. Now, I obviously can't post every battle that I have, especially since there are many that don't go to completion. And if we were factoring those in, because people do rage quit, unfortunately, that number would probably be a little higher, but that is fine for my own personal satisfaction. I am pretty happy with this. And those matches were also spread out over 95 different players that appeared on the channel here. So quite a lot of people. As well as 113 different Pokemon used by me. So those numbers are obviously going to be very high, just due to the fact that there were a lot of battles here. And actually, the previous two battle series I did, both for ORAS and for Sun and Moon, all those battles added together actually fall just shy of the 150 mark. So I more than doubled the amount of Wi-Fi battles that I had here on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon as to what I had before, just because the lifespan of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon was just so long. It just felt like forever. I know it was only a couple of years, but still, it just felt a lot longer than that. But I feel that things stayed relatively interesting and relatively fresh throughout that time, just due to the fact that there were so many different Pokemon to choose from. The largest, obviously, amount to date, given the fact that in the new generation we obviously do not have access to all Pokemon, but that's a discussion for another time. Anyway, we're going to move into talking about the individual players that actually appeared here on the channel next. So as you can see, the first page here I have is going to be all the players here who made multiple appearances on the channel in several different battles. So As you can see, the first number next to each person's name is going to be the amount of appearances they've made on the channel in battles. And then the numbers in the parentheses, the first one is going to be the amount of times that I defeated them. The second number will be the amount of times they defeated me. And then if there's a third number, that is going to be the amount of times we teamed up in a multi-battle. So as you can see at the top of the list, coming in first with 14 separate appearances on the channel, we have Joshi, aka Poke Trainer Joshi, friend and fellow PokeTuber, and he takes the cake because he does have usually a lot of very original, interesting, and fun teams to play. So we did end up having a lot of matches there. So that was definitely a good time. Not far behind that, though, of course, is the infamous Joey Fontaine coming in at 12 appearances on the channel, which is also very high, obviously. Another fellow PokeTuber. And we have some very competitive matches as well, so good time to be had there. And it just kind of filters down from there. As you can see, a number of different players making quite a lot of appearances here on the channel. That was kind of my goal, was just to kind of get at least a few matches with a lot of different players, because if you just have one match with a player, that can be fine on its own, but I usually like to try and get 2 or 3 matches with a player, so you kind of get like a feel for them and their battle style, especially if they're a good player, where you can have good competitive matches. It's nice to be able to have rematches with people, specifically if maybe I lost the first one, to try and get some payback, so to speak. But it is a good time. And then like I said, as you can see, it just kind of filters down from there with a lot of players having made 4 appearances, and then down farther than that, a couple other notable opponents I've faced here on the channel in my time on Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. The Killer Nacho, of course, fellow YouTuber. Coming in with 7 appearances. We've had a lot of good matches here in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon as well. Visual Eye, another pretty big time PokeTuber. We've had some interesting matches. Not the closest all the time, but that's just what happens sometimes, so that's okay. But and then it just kind of filters down a couple of friends on there from generations past. Logan, my old Pokemon mentor, actually, from way back when in the day. Didn't get as many games against him as I would have liked, but unfortunately, real life happens sometimes, so that's okay. Jordan, of course, friend and fellow YouTuber as well, would have liked to get a few more games against him, but he doesn't just do Pokemon; he does a lot of other stuff as well. So, um, you know, uh, not always the easiest to get battles against everyone, but it's I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out here. I would say, just a lot of good players here. Quilliams as well, another very good player that I've had quite a few matches with here. So it's it was fun, and challenging as well, to be able to have games against, or multiple games, I should say, against all of these players right here. So, moving along. So the next page is going to be basically all the one-hit wonders on the channel. Now there are going to be quite a lot of these, because I do get a substantial, or did get rather, a substantial amount of my games off of Festival Plaza that were just random people. So um, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So most of these people are just that. Some of them were people that I knew and just only ended up having one game from, or got off of Discord and ended up only having one match with. But most of them were just random people from Festival Plaza. So as you can see, the top half of the page is going to be all the opponents that I've gone 1-0 against, so I won that one game that we had, and then below that are going to be the opponents that I've lost that one game against, and then at the bottom there were two individuals actually who I actually didn't face, but they did make an appearance via being my partner in a multi-battle. So that's a new kind of statistic that we haven't seen before because that's never happened before in either of my prior Wi-Fi battle series. So, but yeah, that's who these people are, mostly randoms. But I try to keep a pretty tight quality control on my channel over games that I post. So, I like to post competitive games, close games, that are fun and interesting for you guys to watch. So, if anyone's made it onto my channel with a game, normally that's the reason why, because that is the kind of content that I like to provide to you guys. Because I just feel that that's the highest quality of content that you can get out of Pokemon games. So, yeah, so that I think pretty much sums up all the opponents that I faced here on the channel. Again, 95 different players, so quite the laundry list of different players. So moving along, we are going to get into the Pokemon appearances, which, as I mentioned before, 113 different Pokemon that I've used throughout the course of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Those were condensed essentially into 19 core teams of six, as well as two draft league teams of 10. So just a lot of games, a lot of Pokemon in general. There, as you can see, number one on the list is going to be personal favorite of mine. That is Mega Aggron. Having used that in 31 different battles here in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Just great Pokemon. Main reason for that number being so high is because it was drafted to both of my draft league teams. And I believe I did bring it in every single game on in both draft leagues. So just used this guy in a lot of games, and I am perfectly okay with that because just a Pokemon I love, and not to talk too much about the new generation, but Pokemon I'm definitely going to miss in the new generation. But after that, we do have Gudra coming in at 28 appearances, 28 separate battles, not far behind, basically for the same reason, because I had drafted it in both of the draft leagues I entered here on Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. So just a great Pokemon as well, another personal favorite of mine. I really love the pairing. I believe I have mentioned this before of Mega Aggron and Gudra are just such a strong defensive pairing that I just love it. And I will get to keep Gudra though in. Sword and Shield, fortunately, that's a good thing. He did make the jump, although, as I mentioned, Mega Aggron not so much. So, but yeah, it just kind of filters down from there. These are the top of the list. So we go down to more personal favorites of mine: Hitmonlee at 17 games, Alakazam at 16, Incineroar at 14. And just kind of goes down from there. Really, the only thing that all these Pokemon that I have in common that I'm going to show you are most of them are just Pokemon that I really like. I try to pick and use Pokemon on the channel, not just because they are good competitively, but mainly because I like them. Um, Really, how I build teams is I try to find a Pokemon that I like and that is in some way competitively viable, and then I try to build a team around that to try and make things more entertaining for you guys, because I don't believe that you gain as much entertainment out of just watching the same old boring stale stuff. OU here and there, and just it gets old pretty fast. So I try to keep things interesting for you guys. So I try to use Pokemon that are maybe something that you wouldn't normally see on the highest competitive level, but I am willing to take on anyone with any team with them and hopefully have a good game. So So yeah, that covers that side of it. So we'll move on then to the bottom of the barrel via the Pokemon that I've used. Now there are going to be a lot more of these. Similarly with the players, how there were a lot more, one-time appearances. Then there were multiples. There are going to be a lot more. Specifically, Pokemon who had about 6 appearances on the channel. That was really the sweet spot, mainly because I tended to have 6 battles per team with my Pokemon, and that's just where the 6 comes from. Although I will note that I don't count an appearance for a Pokemon in these numbers if it was a Pokemon that I maybe had on my team but didn't use in the game. Then it wasn't counted as having appeared in that game in my numbers. Maybe kind of weird, but it's just the way that I crunch the numbers. Anyway, as you can see here, a lot more Pokemon making right around the 765 mark. Again, just Pokemon that I really like. Some of them are going to be competitive powerhouses, others not so much. I try to get as wide of a spread as possible as far as different tiers, different types, different stats, different everything across all generations of Pokemon 1 through 7. Again, just to try and keep things as interesting as possible for you guys, to try and create something new, a new strategy, a new combination that maybe nobody has seen before. That was really my goal, and that's one of the reasons that I love playing this game so much is just that. Being able to create combinations that maybe no one's ever done before. And that's honestly why I don't usually stay confined within a specific tier. Like you guys will probably have noticed if you've been watching my battles for any length of time, that my teams are usually kind of all over the place in terms of tiers. So you might see like an OU, a UU, an RU, like 2 NUs, 2 PUs. Like it's pretty spread out just because I like to see a Pokemon and pair it with something else and just kind of make it my own, and that's just really what I enjoy from the game so much. So you know, that just really gives me a lot of joy out of the game. So, but yeah, as you can see, again the laundry list of Pokemon that I have used, here on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. All right, so just another couple stats for you guys here. We're going to look at the Pokemon I used by type. So, coming in at the top of this list, we have the water type with 19 different Pokemon that I used being water type. And this is mainly, well, because for one, water is kind of my favorite type. So, or at least, one of them at the top next to steel. But water also is just a really good type competitively. There are more water type Pokemon than any other type, actually, and they just tend to pair well with mostly anything. So, I actually ended up using a water type on every single team of all 19 teams of 6 that I created. Ended up using a water type on all 6 of them, and I did do that on purpose, just because, for the aforementioned reasons. But after that, then we have the fighting and steel types, 14 different Pokemon for each of those. As I mentioned, steel, another one of my favorite types, but also fighting. I do enjoy the fighting type quite a bit, and a lot of the Pokemon that are fighting types. So, from there, it just kind of filters down all the way down. It's to the bottom with the ice type with only 4 different Pokemon used from that. There are a couple different reasons for that. First and foremost, as I've mentioned numerous times in the past, the ice type is just the worst type in the game defensively. So most ice type Pokemon are rendered completely outclassed due to that in competitive play, in my opinion. So it's just hard to use them. It's hard to fit them around other stuff because you have to do so much additional work to compensate for all the weaknesses that the ice type brings, as opposed to only bringing one resistance to itself. So ice is just very, very bad defensively. Another reason is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, ice is the rarest type, or at least it was anyway. So there are the fewest ice type Pokemon in the game, so that definitely limits your options as to what you can use, as well as a lot of them just not being either very good or just something that I don't like very much. Because again, I do try to use Pokemon. I try to choose Pokemon based more on what I like. So, but yeah, that was really the reason for that, which is kind of pretty consistent with my other battle series as well. Ice usually comes in near the bottom, water usually near the top. So um, that's just kind of the pattern, I guess, of Captain B-Nard and what I choose to use. So anyway, moving along. Last number I have for you guys, and that is going to be a generational number. Showing you guys which gen which Pokemon came from that I used. You can see at the top of this list we have Gen 1 taking the cake, as 24 of the Pokemon that I used were actually Gen 1 Pokemon. Coming in second, we actually have Gen 5 with 22 different Gen 5 Pokemon that I used, and that number might surprise a couple of you because, as I've been very outspoken about in the past, I personally believe Gen 5 was the worst generation in Pokemon. That was actually one of the reasons I did try to use more Gen 5 Pokemon in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, is because there are, despite my criticisms, there are actually a lot of cool Pokemon that came out of Gen 5, and I tried to pick up on them and use, as many of them as I could, because having not played much of Gen 5 myself, I didn't really get much of a chance to use a lot of these Pokemon before. Again, it kind of comes back to trying to give you guys variety, trying to give you guys as much of a spread across all generations, all types of Pokemon out there. So I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. Um, it kind of filters down to Gen 6 coming in at the bottom with me having only used 10 Pokemon from that. And couple of reasons for that, I think. Aside from the fact that I believe Gen 6 is the smallest generation, I also used quite a lot of Gen 6 Pokemon in my previous battle series, specifically in ORAS. Not as many in Sun and Moon, I believe, but I know in ORAS a lot. And again, as I mentioned before, trying to keep the originality for you guys, trying to change things up, and that was really my primary goal here in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, is I wanted to use a lot of different things across the board to try and keep things interesting for you guys and hopefully entertain you. I feel that I did accomplish that. And I would hope that you guys would agree as well. Okay, so that pretty much covers it as far as the statistics side of it go. So, um, I guess at this time I would just like to bid farewell to the Nintendo DS at this point. Console had a lot of longevity. There were a lot of different renditions. You had your original 3DS, you had your DS Lite, DSi, DS XL, 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS. I'm sure I'm forgetting some somewhere, um, but the DS had a very long lifespan, and although I will admit I was pretty critical of the prospect of Pokemon moving off of handheld, because I didn't want to buy a Switch. I did buy a Switch, and well, for those of you who know the Switch, you'll know it's kind of a handheld. It's like kind of both a handheld and a console system. But again, that'll be a discussion for another time. Um, but my point here is that the DS did have a good run. I am going to miss DS gaming, to be honest with you. I did like the DS a lot, and Pokemon on the DS was just kind of like something that I really grew accustomed to ever since Gen 4, as have mentioned in the past. I kind of got back into Pokemon in Gen 4 with the DS and Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. So it is kind of the end of an era, in a sense, with the DS handheld systems in general, kind of an end of an era. So um, it was a good time for sure, and it is going to be the dawning of something new. Well, it kind of already has been, but for me at least, because me being resistant to change, as a lot of people are, um, you know, uh, just moving forward with new stuff in the Pokemon franchise, and changes being made and all that stuff. But it was a good time with the DS. I believe throughout the entirety of probably about 11 years that I've been gaming on the DS. I believe I only had three separate DSs throughout that entire time, so reliable system. And I believe the only reason that I actually changed DSs was I changed from the original DS to the 3DS so I could get into Gen 6, and then I changed from that 3DS to a um, hacked modified DS so I could get into um, doing recordings with um, the capture card and software and that kind of thing. And it was just more convenient to buy a new DS that was already set up that way versus sending mine away to have it set up that way. Um, so yeah, it is it is what it is. So, yes, but looking ahead now to the Switch and to Generation 8 Pokemon Sword and Shield. At this point, as I'm sure all of you know, it has been about a month since Sword and Shield came out. I did get the game not long after release. I have been playing it. And I have beaten the story mode, and I am still going through and collecting things and playing and doing things. And I am not going to tell you guys my opinion just yet on this game. Because the very next episode of the Captain's Table is going to be a full-fledged review and reaction to Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, where I will have at least one guest, maybe more. I'm not sure at this point, but definitely at least one guest to talk to about Sword and Shield, and kind of get some different perspectives, and kind of just go over everything about Sword and Shield. There were a lot of changes made to the Pokemon franchise in this game and in this generation, and some of them are good, some of them are not. And we are going to go over all of them together, as there's not going to be a ton of else. There's not going to be a ton else going on here on the channel in the meantime. So that is going to be coming your way next time, but I think that about does it for me this time. So Thanks for watching again, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and/or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. I would also like to say a very special thank you to everyone who has been watching me and supporting me throughout the years through all my Wi-Fi battle series, ORAS, Sun and Moon, and now with the conclusion of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I do really appreciate the support from you guys, and at the end of the day, that is why I do this, is to have fun and to entertain you guys. So I hope to continue to do that in the new generation in the future. There may be some big changes coming here for Captain B-Nard on the channel, so definitely stay tuned for those. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Captain's Table. And that's it, and we'll see you next time.